and all this other stuff, and I'm like going, oh my goodness, this isn't quite what I meant. But, and she was just chowing down because she hadn't been able to eat in forever, and I was like treating it dynamically right then and there as she's eating, and she's happily ever after, of course, too. So, but and I have to tell people, it's like everyone hears this and says, well, I just want to come for one day because it's,
right.
You made it sound like it's going to be this instant thing. And I do want to go on record as saying we can't fix everything still.
Mm-hmm.
But we have so much fun doing what we do because we can affect and just do things that no one's been able to do for these people very often quickly.
You know, I think Dr. Rouse said yesterday, he talked about, well, it's the old 80-20 rule, and he said like 80% of the folks can be fixed really quickly. You know, so.
But I'd bet you 90-something% that we can shift in a positive way that nobody else could. Amazing. Yeah, I did a in-house informal study of incurable patients. I don't care what the diagnosis was. There was all to be included was that you've either never gotten better or you've gotten worse with treatments of any kind.
Yeah.
All comers. There were 300, and oh my goodness, 68, don't hold me to it, but it's on my website, the study is, at hansacenter.com.
Okay.
But 368 total symptoms in 29 people. Now think about that. That's our kind of patients.
Wow.
368 total symptoms, 177 unique symptoms. So that means like maybe 10 people had the same basic symptoms or for some of the things.
Right.
And at the end of 2 weeks, it was like 45% of all of the symptoms were reported as no longer there. At the end of like 3 days of treatment, there was just dramatic improvement already. And we broke it down statistically. And again, statistics are what they are. My only point was to show no one's been able to make these people better even. Like, I'm not happy unless you're out of the wheelchair.
Right.
But they're ecstatic maybe if I gave them bladder control back. Right?
Yep. Oh,
okay.
Yeah, because that's a huge improvement.
But wouldn't you want your doctor to be on that same page and kind of go, I want you out of the wheelchair? You know, I don't want to give you something that 3 months, 5 months, 10 months, 2 years, 5 years, 8 years down the road, maybe you'll start feeling better. Because I don't see that in my actual practice as the way that we do things, because of going back to what we started with, that pure philosophy of health, because mainstream medicine functions on a suppression of symptoms. 88% of their medicines do nothing but suppress the symptoms.
Well, may I say, to me, doctors, from a business standpoint, doctors are deal killers. Most medical doctors. What they do is they start off by telling you that there's no known cause and no known cure. So right away, the first thing they do is take away all hope. It's like Dante's Inferno, you know, relinquish all hope because you're never going to get out. You're going to be on drugs for the rest of your life. And that's what was told to us. So I know exactly what you mean.
Absolutely, and I love that. I eat that for lunch. All these people that have been told it's not possible. You know, I'm like going, and doctors, you have to understand very often in the model that's being practiced, yes, they are no longer really truly problem solvers. They're not like detectives. They're not going to like you said, you had a very personal investment into your daughter's, figuring out your daughter's illness.
Yes.
It's like when you come to the Hansa Center, you're in my family.
Wow.
You're under my protection. I hired everyone with their hearts still intact, meaning my staff. You're going to be loved, nurtured, taken care of. But seriously, like, the doctors aren't being taught to be detectives. They're being taught to match a diagnosis to a protocol. Even in natural medicine, you have all of these famous guys cranking out canned protocols. I mean, I could name names, but that's not the point here. It's just really just the protocols. It's a catch-all that says, well, this should help the vast majority. And I understand the why people like that is because, you know, it's generally like, it's going to be expensive if I go to Wichita, or it's going to be expensive if I do something. Well, so we're looking for the $10 fix because that's all we're
everybody's looking to drive into McDonald's and go to the window and get handed a bag and drive off, and then you're well, you're full.
And there's a huge segment of the population that really isn't wanting that, but they really have already spent so much of their time and their money and their emotional energy, but mostly their money, on the journey of what doesn't work.
Yeah.
You know, and the bad thing about the internet now is that every doctor says they can help. I mean, you just, who do you believe anymore?
It's difficult. I spent a lot of time, and I remember, you know, my wife has said things like that to me. You know, how do you know who to believe? And it's difficult because you have to continue to read, then you have to check, you have to cross-check, you have to multi-check. It's not easy. I know what you go through because I went through it myself, and that's why I'm at this conference, and that's why I'm sitting here with Dr. David Jernigan, and we're discussing all these things because it's a bear. I mean, you know, the interesting thing is I had time to do the research, and so many of you just don't have the time, and so I'm trying to help you. I'm cutting to the chase so that you can listen to somebody like Dr. Jernigan and talk about his health center and the fantastic results that they've had, where people from all over the world have come to partake of. They want to end their journey, and they found an end at your health center and in all the things that you do.
Well, thank you very much. The philosophy is what I teach the most. I've written hundreds of articles in my blogs. I've written books, wrote a book on Lyme disease. And again, people are like going, how do you write an entire book, like 500 pages on Lyme disease if you're a chiropractor? Because you're not supposed to be treating disease. And I'm like, read the book. It is a pure philosophy of how does the body really maintain itself and heal itself. No, I don't have to treat a named disease. Would you care what the label was if you walked out completely well? No.
You know, I remember when we were going through this process with Jenna, one of the things, somebody said to me, well, what if such and such was a placebo? My answer is, great. If it works, I'll take placebos all day long. But I don't really care. All I want is an end to the program.
But you know, I think I was talking to the same conversation with a patient in the waiting room the other day, and he was a very nice man, but I said, I don't feel like we have the ability to do the placebo thing as well, because by the time somebody finds us, generally, unfortunately, they've been to Mayo, they've been to Johns Hopkins, they've been to the big name doctors, and they really don't believe anyone can help them. Matter of fact, a lot of them are angry when they come in, and they have this chip on their shoulder for the doctors. They kind of maybe want to believe, but I think if you talk to any of our doctors, you'd find us saying, we work way too hard for placebo to be what's doing it. Because
Exactly.
It's like, if placebo would work for us, we wouldn't have to work so hard. I'm like, we do this treatment, do this treatment, do this treatment. It's like, how are you? No, my symptom's still really bad. And we do this, and with the patient. Not just, I mean, now we don't even need to twist and pop your spine. We know what was doing that now, so we could align your spine, pelvis, and cranium and never lay a finger on you because of how the body regulates itself electromagnetically. It's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean, we go to school for 4 years to learn how to align the spine, and yet here we are able to do it using energetic means even.
Speaking of energetic, here's a question. One of the more difficult, and it's epidemic, is tinnitus, ringing in the ears. I can't, you know, mostly nobody says anything about it, but lots and lots of people have that problem. What is it that you folks do? I mean, you must have been treating patients with tinnitus.
Well, it's getting worse, I think, primarily due to the amount of stress that we're under from all angles. I mean, we're staring at these computer screens, we're staring at our cell phones, we're being bombarded by electromagnetic pollution essentially coming out of the wiring in your walls. The cell phone is a microwave generator. It gets hot in your hand the longer you talk on it because it's microwaves. It is causing problems. You have cell towers. I'm so sad for the people that live in these big complexes, these high-rise buildings, and they have these massive cell towers on top of the building. And I'm like, they're just getting toasted. Even if you wanted to be in a safe environment and create electromagnetically safe environment, your neighbor's stuff, your neighbor's Wi-Fi, you're being nailed from above, below, and to the sides by all of this electromagnetic pollution that we never had. Then you have the ideas of just like once you get behind the 8 ball, in your health especially, the symptoms themselves create their own stress on the person.
Oh,
And eventually you're in a post-traumatic
stress.
syndrome, almost like a soldier is, because it's just like you're just stressed to the max from every single direction.
Yep.
And a lot of the time you're hearing the tension in the nerve itself in the ear. And so there's gut issues that are involved. I mean, we're eating processed foods that are energetically dead.
Oh, isn't that the
I mean-
truth? You know they're dead.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody, even, you know, it's interesting. We all know that a trip to McDonald's or any place like that, you know that it's no good. You know, you can leave the bread out. Not even microorganisms will eat it. It doesn't, it doesn't decay from within. It gets stale.
I have the
because
same-
nobody wants to eat it.
Even when you think you're doing something good with, I'm going to eat a lot of produce. So you go to the grocery store and you buy an apple. And I did this. I brought a Granny Smith apple just for the fun of it, from just not organic, just your normal Granny Smith apple. And I kept it for months and months and months. It never did rot. It never did do anything. I cut it open. It looked just like the day I bought it probably. And I'm like kind of going, what do you think this is doing on the inside of you? We're being pickled from the inside out, from all the formaldehyde and different products. Fluoride creates apathy in the mind. It's a neurotoxin. It's a byproduct of the aluminum industry. But the EPA wouldn't let them put it in the ocean. They wouldn't let them landfill it, so they decided to feed it to us. It creates apathy. It promotes apathy in the body. So we look at society, from our perspective, and I'm kind of like pulling further and further back towards what's God's design really was originally. So it's like people don't touch the earth anymore. Little things like this where you discharge.
Huge.
If you're going to be in this hugely electromagnetic, sick, toxic, energetically sick, plastic carpets, plastic chairs, rubber-soled shoes, don't you think you ought to discharge that energy sometimes? Like, people don't touch the earth.
That's called grounding.
Very good.
Yes.
Take your shoes off, walk out in the grass. Hopefully the grass wasn't just sprayed with some sort of herbicide and pesticide and all these funky things that are going on.
And how about bisphenol A? We had an example this morning in one of the sessions where the patient that they were speaking about was a machinist, and he was machining and using the cutting oil that he had bisphenol A, that's plastic. Was involved in it, and he would get close work, so he would breathe in these fumes, and the guy was polluted. He had some of he was Swiss, and the testing was done at a Swiss lab, a toxicology lab, and it was found that he had the highest reading that the fellow had ever seen. So, in bisphenol A, everybody drinks that. Well, how about, that's what is the plastic in water bottles. So it's constant. People think, well, I'm going to do something healthy. I'll drink water. Great, let's drink some plastic.
Exactly. And we're in a plastic world.
Huge.
In a very toxic world, and we're not going to get away from that.
How about the carpets or the bedding that you sleep in? They have to put fire retardant stuff all over your bedding, so all night long you're trying to get a good night's sleep and you're inhaling all these toxic chemicals.
Well, they're getting to be more and more options out there, and it really is an education process.
Yes.
And a budget process, because unfortunately sometimes it does cost more to get an organic mattress that doesn't have the fire retardant stuff sprayed into it. You can get organic sheets, cotton sheets, I would encourage people to understand that it's like anything that's polyester, nylon, rayon, these are estrogenic in their frequency. So when you wear these fabrics, let's say you're wearing a polyester shirt or something, it is creating estrogenic things to happen in your body, like estrogen. Okay, so you're going to have all these women that actually have estrogen-sensitive breast cancer, let's say. Your Tide detergents, most of your major detergents are going to aggravate those things. There's a commercial on TV I really like for one of the leading fabric softeners, which I probably shouldn't name, but if you know leading fabric softeners, the commercial is beautiful. I really want it for a training seminar someday that I could just have up there, because it demonstrates how poisonous our world is. And we've gotten so used to scents. as in fragrances.
Yes, yes.
And they have a picture of somebody laying on a pillow, and they have bubbles coming up to represent the stays fresh 10 times longer now. And the woman's asleep, and the sheets and the pillow are outgassing this fragrance that's supposed to make you feel like it's clean when it's really dirty, by the way. Yeah. You know, you probably should wash it a little more often, but you shouldn't use the fabric softeners. I mean, it's just like anything you can smell is a chemical floating around in the air.
Yes.
You're breathing these scents into your body, and those have to be dealt with. And this is one thing that medicine will not seem to get around.
Right.
They will not acknowledge, and I've seen some really vicious attacks against natural doctors from the mainstream doctors, because they go, this idea that you're toxic is ludicrous. The idea that you're full of heavy metals is ludicrous. You're never going to cut open a human body and find these metals. Well, of course not. You're not going to find a chunk of mercury in your body. But the atomic level, and this is a highly